Sindy Ortiz Flores fled violence from her home country in Honduras to ask for asylum in the United States with her partner, Kevin Joel Ventura Corrales, her two 9- and 7-year-old children, and her and Kevin's 18-month-old daughter, Juliet. When the family reached Puebla, Mexico, Sindy and the two older children were separated from Kevin and Juliet. When Kevin reached the southern U.S.-Mexican border near Calexico on December 28, 2018, he was arrested for illegal reentry, and Juliet was taken from him by authorities and sent to a holding facility in Texas. Once Sindy arrived at the border and found out that her 18-month-old child, Juliet, had been taken from Kevin by the United States government, it was a harrowing ordeal for her to try to get her daughter back. Finally, Sindy and Juliet were reunited on January 29, 2019, something she says would never have happened without the assistance of the not-for-profit group Mijente. Joining me today is Sindy Ortiz Flores, Jacinta Gonzalez, campaign manager for Mijente, and Lisa Castellanos, translator and Mijente volunteer. Welcome all, and thank you all for joining us. Sindy, it was quite a horrifying experience to be separated from your daughter and have a stranger take care of your 18-month-old child.
Sí, fue yo creo que una de las peores cosas que me han pasado. Yes, it's been one of the worst things I've ever been through.
How did you and your partner, Kevin, get separated in Mexico? And how did he end up with your 18-month-old? This all happened prior to you coming up to the border.
Pues generalmente cuando uno viene en el camino hacia Estados Unidos, cuando vienes por México, corre peligro de que migración mexicana te detenga y te deporte a tu país, y nosotros no queríamos eso. So generally, when you're traveling up through Mexico, it's very possible for Mexican authorities to separate you, so we didn't want that to happen.
You left Tegucigalpa, Honduras. That's 1,700 miles from the U.S.-Mexican border. You had to take a bus, a train called the Beast. Did you talk about with Kevin before you started this trip to the U.S.-Mexican border that there would be a possibility that you would be separated and what you would do if that were to happen?
Hablamos bastante, o sea, sobre los peligros que había. Era peligroso por tantas cosas que pasan malas en el camino. We did talk about the dangers of the journey. We talked about the risks. We talked about possible kidnappings. Nos podían asaltar. That we could be assaulted. Pero la dificultad de estar en nuestro país era peor. But the danger of remaining in our country was worse.
I understand.
Pues así como un plan, pues no, pero yo traía claro de que podía pasar cualquier cosa. Él traía claro también que nos podía pasar cualquier cosa. We didn't really have a plan, but we knew that we might confront anything.
Coming up from Honduras through Central America, tell us what happened in Mexico, how you and Kevin and your family and that beautiful daughter of yours got separated.
Pues nosotros tuvimos a la niña internada en Puebla. Tuvimos varios días internados, pues cuando nosotros salimos del hospital, pues decidimos agarrar el tren de nuevo, dormíamos en el tren, y entonces de repente nos vamos para las vías del tren, había más personas y también esperando, y resulta que cayó migración. Okay. Bueno, so when we were in Puebla, we had to take the baby to the clinic, and when they discharged the baby from the clinic, we heard that the train was going to be leaving soon. So when we headed to the train, that is when Mexican immigration authorities arrived.
How many days were you traveling from Honduras by the time you got to Puebla, Mexico?
No tengo calculado cuánto, pero ya teníamos como 15 días, creo, más. I don't have the exact dates, but it was about 15 days of traveling at that point.
And your baby was sick at that point as well?
Estaba con pneumonia. She had pneumonia.
Oh my gosh.
She didn't have much of a fever, but she was having respiratory problems, and so we decided to take her to the doctor in Puebla.
Tell me what happened at the train station in Puebla, Mexico, that all of a sudden you and your family got separated.
Entonces resulta que todo el mundo salió a la carrera. Yo me acuerdo que solo agarré a mi niña Ashley, a Joshua, y salí a la carrera, y de repente no supe más de qué, ni de la niña.
At that moment, when Mexican immigration authorities arrived, there was all of a sudden a lot of activity, a lot of movement, and all I remember doing is reaching for my daughter Ashley and my son Joshua. And at that point, I didn't know where Kevin and the baby were.
Were there a lot of Central Americans at that train station getting on the train to go north?
De Guatemala, de Salvador, de Nicaragua, había muchas personas ahí esperando. Y yo me acuerdo que solo agarré a mis niños y salí a la carrera.
There were many different people from Central America, including Guatemala and Nicaragua, waiting to get on the train. And all I remember doing is just grabbing for my two older children as soon as I could.
It was basically Mexican soldiers coming. They had guns, they had rifles. What did they come and do when you said they had activity? Were they arresting people?
Pues la verdad que yo no me quedé para mirar, pero sí me fijé que estaban golpeando a las personas. Yo incluso me metí como en un monte, un barranco, ahí estuve como casi, no les sabría decir exactamente cuándo, pero alrededor de más de 2 horas, 3 horas estuve ahí escondida. Incluso escuché cuando pasó el tren, pero no quise salir.
Yes, I did hear the Mexican immigration authorities hitting people, but actually I didn't have enough time to really pay attention because I just found a place to hide with my children and I hid for a couple of hours to be out of the sight of the police. And I heard the train when it left, but I didn't leave my hiding place at that point.
You were able to see out of the corner of your eye when the Mexican authorities left, and that's only when you were able to come out?
No podía ver, pero después de estar tiempo ahí escondida, entonces dije yo voy a salir. Y incluso les decía a mis niños que se quedaran, que no hicieran ruido, que yo iba a salir a ver si todavía estaba la policía, pero no, todavía no había nadie.
So we didn't really have a line of sight where we were hiding, and I even told my children to not make any noise at all. After some time, I went to check to see if the coast was clear, and at that point, everyone was gone.
Más que miedo, me sentía desesperada y impotente porque no sabía qué hacer.
I felt desperate and powerless because I didn't know what to do.
And what about your children? How were they?
Pues al principio a la que más le afectó fue a Ashley porque como es la mayor, es la que sabía que ya no estábamos con Kevin. Sí, le daba miedo porque ya solo éramos nosotros y ya era diferente.
My older child, Ashley, was most impacted at first because she's old enough to know that we were no longer with Kevin and that it was just going to be the three of us. So she was the most impacted at first.
Did you and Kevin have cell phones? Were you able to call him or text him?
No, la verdad que no teníamos ningún medio de comunicación. Que cuando, yo me acuerdo que cuando salí para buscarlo y no lo encontré, yo me desesperé totalmente porque no hallaba qué hacer, pero incluso nosotros ya habíamos hablado que si algún día nos separábamos teníamos que seguir el camino y llegar hasta nuestro destino porque así íbamos a saber el uno del otro.
When I came out of the hiding place and realized that we were separated, I was desperate and didn't know what to do because we had no way to communicate with each other at that point. But we had agreed that if at any point we were going to be separated in the journey, that we were going to continue the journey and that we would meet up at the border.
How'd you get from Puebla, Mexico to the border?
Pues ahí en Puebla me estuve como no sé, unos días ahí esperando, tal vez yo en mi mente que iba a llegar Kevin y me iba a decir que no sé, cualquier cosa. Estuve preguntando por él y todo, pero nadie me dio respuesta, entonces decidí seguir mi camino.
So I stayed a few days in Puebla, hung around there, thinking that Kevin would show up and find us. I even asked around if people had seen him, and then I realized that I needed to continue the journey north.
How did you pay for food?
Pues no, la verdad que la gente de México muy buena, porque nos apoyaron bastante. Me acuerdo que una señora que nos dio hasta dónde quedarnos también a dormir.
It was the generosity of the Mexican people that helped us. A woman who gave us a place to stay for a while.
Incluso me quedé 2 días en una iglesia católica.
And we even stayed in a church, in a Catholic church, for a couple of days.
So Jacinta Gonzalez, you're the campaign organizer for Mijente. Tell us a little bit about what Mijente is and what Mijente does.
So Mijente is a political home for Latinx and Chicanx folks that are organizing both digitally and in real life around issues that impact our community. And so we're a network of members that are across the country, and we also do both online and in real life campaigns around some of these issues.
How did you first find out that baby Juliet, this beautiful 18-month-old child, was separated from her dad, Kevin, in jail?
As Mijente, we've really been looking at some of the issues that are coming up with this administration's criminalization agenda. And so one of the issues that we've been seeing is more and more people that are crossing the border being prosecuted simply for coming to this country. And particularly people like Kevin, who have been deported before and have come back. Those are the people who are the most criminalized and the people who are paying the highest price, in addition to being separated from their children. So we were in communication with the public defender's office in San Diego, who's been doing amazing work. And it was actually through Kevin's defense attorney, part of the San Diego Defenders, that we heard about this case and understood that even though Sindy had been released, she wasn't being given her child back, and the agencies were dragging their feet in terms of being able to allow for the family reunification.
Well, certainly it's always been on the books that if you've been ordered deported and you try to re-enter the United States, it is a criminal offense. It is being prosecuted now like none other before. Many times it was only prosecuted if you were a criminal alien, meaning that you were deported because you committed a criminal offense. Now they're deporting people who just trying to make a better life for themselves, or maybe in the case of Kevin and Sindy, just literally escaping violence and making criminals of them. But this all separation of Juliet from Kevin, Donald Trump over the summer said he's not going to do it anymore, yet they were separated. Do you know why that happened?
Even though they signed the bill that says that they were going to try to not separate as many families, there wasn't a direct order saying that it was never going to happen again. And what we're actually seeing is that they're using the excuse of the label of someone being considered quote unquote a criminal against people to justify these actions.
Right.
Because they see it as a quote unquote felony, that is their excuse to do this. But one of the things that was the most alarming about this case is they actually hid it from the court. So for the first 3 court appearances that Kevin had, the court didn't even have any indication that his child had been taken from him because authorities didn't put it on his charging document. What is happening is there's a lack of accountability with the courts and with the agencies that are prosecuting people, and there's a lack of accountability and transparency with this administration. The use of family separation is a way of terrorizing communities that have already undergone tremendous historic violence from the authorities, from the government, from separating parents and from their children when slavery, from doing it with indigenous communities is like part of their tactics of war and conquer. We've seen that them do it again and again, and this is part of that same pattern.
I believe we're saying the same exact thing. I don't believe that Kevin should have been separated from his child simply because he didn't do anything violent or he didn't do anything that would cause anybody to believe that this child is in any danger being there with him. It was done simply as a punishment to Kevin and really punished an 18-month-old child. When you found out about this, what were the concrete steps that Mijente did to reunite Juliet with Sindy?
The Department of Health and Services that had Juliet in their custody was demanding that Sindy hand over a credit card where it could be charged up to $4,000 for flights to be reunited with her kid. And they were also asking Kevin sign a form stating that he authorized the mother to take custody, but they were insisting that this form be notarized, which is impossible to do in the state of Arizona. The only folks that were able to do that was actually ICE agents themselves. They were putting so many structural barriers for Sindy to be reunited with her child. And so what we decided to do with her consent and working together with her was to, one, talk to the media about the story. And so both through her public defender and through our efforts, several reporters were notified of what was happening, and we also contacted representatives from different locations to let them know about the situation and get them to intervene. It literally took a national media and political scandal to reunite this baby with her mother, and that isn't possible to do for the thousands and thousands of people who have gone through this. Thanks to Lisa and other Mijente members in San Francisco and the Bay Area, gotten a great support network with health services and housing and other things, but the challenges are tremendous from, being evicted and finding a safe place to live. We've been able to push as much as we can, but the gap is still so big.
Sure. Was it difficult to actually locate Juliet?
Kevin's criminal defense attorney, as well as the congressional offices, were able to talk to the social worker in charge of her case. But from what I know, we were never able to get an exact location of where she was. And that was one of the things that was the most frustrating, I know, for Sindy, just knowing that an 18-month-old can't really communicate to you where she is, what's happening, what kind of treatment she's getting. And so those unknown factors make the experience even more anxiety producing.
When you had an opportunity to see Juliet, how did she look? Did she look healthy?
Oh, súper diferente. Estaba delgadita.
She
venía
looked
más
very
delgadita.
different. She was underweight. She had a respiratory issue.
Venía bien llorona. Su pelito lo traía todo.
She was crying unconsolably,
Le tenía miedo a todas las personas.
and she was terrified of everybody.
La primera semana fue bien difícil porque no podíamos salir porque ella le tenía miedo a todo el mundo, solo con que le hablaran, que le acercaran. Ella, incluso la estoy llevando a un psicólogo porque tiene como ese trauma todavía de cuando la separaron de papá.
The first week was so hard because I couldn't even take her outdoors. Anybody that she saw that got close to her, that looked at her, that spoke to her, would terrify her. And in fact, now I'm currently taking her to a pediatric or psychologist to help begin to deal with the traumas that she experienced.
How did you feel when you saw Juliet? I can't imagine what you went through as a parent myself.
Me sentía muy feliz por verla, o sea, es un sentimiento que no, cuando vuelve volver a ver el amor de mi vida, porque mi hija para mí lo es todo, y mirarla tan diferente, tan cambiada, me hacía sentir impotente porque la miraba más delgada, ya no era la misma niña, todo en ella había cambiado un poco.
When I first saw her, I was so happy and seeing the love of your life for the first time because she's everything to me. And then I felt powerless because I saw how much she had changed, how much weight she had lost, and everything that she had been through.
The kids are all in therapy now. What is the doctor saying, what their prognosis is now, short-term, long-term?
Pues la verdad que el psicólogo me dijo que estábamos avanzando porque todo era poco a poco, porque a ella le había afectado bastante el hecho de que le hayan separado del papá de la manera violenta en que lo hicieron, porque como a él se la quitaron, ella miró cuando golpearon al papá y eso no, yo creo que no es algo fácil, porque incluso cualquiera puede decir está muy chiquita y no entiende, pero así como a uno de madre le duele lo que le pase a los hijos, yo me imagino que ellos han de sentir el mismo dolor por uno de padre, y al mirar cómo tiraban al piso a su papá y lo golpearon y se la quitaron y no lo volvió a ver, yo creo que eso fue un trauma para ella.
The doctor says that Gretchen is making small steps and that everyone is slowly going to improve. But the reality is that the baby saw her father thrown to the ground and beaten as she was taken away from her father forcefully. And even though some people will say that, she's so little, she's not going to remember and she won't be affected, it's obvious that, that it must have affected her to see her father go through that and for her to be separated in that way.
It's a total stress on a child that child lives with for a long time. Hopefully she'll get better over time. Jacinta, do you have a message for Donald Trump after knowing what Sindy and Juliet went through and the thousands of others who are being separated from their family?
Our message to this administration is that we have to continue to stand up against what we see very clearly is an agenda that is just promoting terror, that is just promoting incarceration, that is just promoting trauma of children and communities alongside the border, both folks that are looking to come in for protection, but also communities that have long lived at the border. What we're seeing is that he's using immigration as a political stunt and a political football to rile up his base at the expense of people's fundamental human rights. And so for us, we continue to demand he does not get any more funding to continue to militarize the border and continue to expand his deportation force, that he no longer get any funding for these baseless prosecutions that are simply spending more money, that are increasing incarceration and are not helping create more safety for people. For us, we continue to organize with people that will stand against these prosecutions, because we know that they're not just happening in the border, they're happening throughout the country. And that, unfortunately, who is really paying the steepest price for this are babies like Juliet, and it is our duty to help support them and help protect them from the attacks that are coming from this administration.
How many families is your organization helping right now, do you think?
We are focused on doing the organizing work to try to change the policies. There's other organizations that are in charge of kind of doing case by case in doing the service that is needed for these types of crises. Mm-hmm. But what we've seen is that because of the policies that this administration has taken, it's made a crisis that's too big for the existing infrastructure. And so all of us have to find our ways to chip in and to support.
Where can we go to find out more about your organization and help support it?
Folks can go to our website, mijente.net. You can sign on to our listserv, you can make a donation, or if you identify as Latinx and Chicanx, and not only pro-Latinx, but being pro-Black, pro-women, pro-trans, pro-queer, pro-worker, pro-undocumented, because our communities are all of that and much more, then you can also sign up to become a member. So you can look up Mijente/member.
Thank you. Very commendable work you did. You can't feel more good about at least helping one family. There's a lot more families to help, and there's a lot more changes that need to be made here in America, and you're on the forefront of it all.
Thank you, and the fight is only halfway done. We're really excited that Juliet is back with Sindy and can start that healing process. But we're very well aware that Kevin is still in a detention center in Arizona. We won't stop until the entire family is together and safe and able to start their healing process together. So more to come, so thank you for the support.
Okay. Thank you. So Sindy, what did you do when you couldn't find Kevin?
Pues decidí seguir mi camino y pues la verdad que me vine de Puebla, me acuerdo que me fui en el tren y pasé por la Ciudad de México y llegué a un lugar que le dicen Huehuetoca.
I decided to continue the journey north. We got on the train, we got to Mexico City to a place called Huehuetoca.
Pues cuando iba en el camino me encontré a unos guatemaltecos que ellos me ayudaron.
When I was on the train, I met some people from Guatemala who were tremendous help for me.
How many days were you away from the border?
Pues igual bastante lejos, porque para llegar a la frontera me estuve varios días.
It took several days to arrive.
Con los guatemaltecos me dijeron que había un albergue ahí en Huehuetoca, que nos podíamos ir para ese albergue, que tal vez allí encontrábamos a Kevin. Y entonces yo me fui con ellos, me acuerdo, y llegamos al albergue. Yo pregunté si habían visto a un muchacho con una niña en un cargador, y nadie me decían que pasaban muchas personas por ahí que no sabían decirme si era él o no.
When we were in Mexico City, I went with the other travelers from Guatemala to a shelter. I asked around for someone that looked like Kevin, that had a baby and a carrier. Nobody could tell me that they had seen him.
Me venían diciendo que el tren tenía que tomar y cómo, a qué estación íbamos a llegar y dónde estaban las casas de migrantes para poder descansar, bañarnos y seguir nuestro viaje.
The folks from Guatemala were really helpful because they were able to help give me information on which train to catch, which station to go to, which migrant safe houses that I could go to shower, to rest a bit before getting back on the train.
And when you got to the border, what happened?
Pues lo primero que hice, pues me acuerdo que llegué a la frontera el mero 31 de diciembre.
I got to the border on December 31st.
Pues entonces ese día era como, nosotros llegamos como en la madrugada, me llevaron a una casa de migrantes. Solo me acuerdo que solo me bañé, me cambié y me dije, me voy.
So we got there at dawn. We got to a migrant center. What I remember is that I took a shower and then immediately said, okay, let's go.
Entonces me acuerdo que yo intenté cruzar por la mera garita de Estados Unidos Incluso me crucé, pero me sacaron de nuevo para afuera y yo les dije que no, que yo quería saber de mi hija, que no, les expliqué que nos habíamos separado con ella, con el papá, que yo quería darme cuenta de dónde estaban ellos dos, y entonces ellos me hicieron, no, ve tú a arreglar a México, no me quedé, o sea, me sacaron.
I tried to enter through the entry point, and I told the officials there that I was desperately looking for Kevin and my baby, and they basically just sent me away and sent me back into Mexico to tell me to figure out what I was going to do over there.
Me daba miedo, o sea, me daba miedo pensar de que los habían detenido en México, y qué había pasado con ellos. Y o sea, que me sentía tan impotente, yo quería saber de ellos. Todo el día, me acuerdo de ese día, anduve todo el día alrededor de la frontera, estaba lloviendo, estaba haciendo frío, los niños me decían que estaban cansados, que ya no aguantaban más. Y entonces me acuerdo que yo más me desesperaba, pero al saber de que estaba a un paso de poder darme cuenta de mi hija, que si, cómo estaba, si estaba, o sea.
I was afraid where they were, if they had been stuck along the way in Mexico, coming north. I had no idea anything about them. I felt powerless. I just remember just wandering around the border area there looking for them. It was raining. My older children were complaining that they were tired, but I couldn't stop looking. I had no idea where they were.
So how did you eventually make it to the United States?
Yo me entregué, o sea, yo me pasé, digamos, el primero de enero de ese año, perdón, y me acuerdo que fue como a las 3, 4 de la madrugada, y entonces de repente cuando yo me entrego yo pregunto por la niña, por él, y cuando me tiene detenida la patrulla fronteriza, lo primero que me hacen es insultarme y tratarme de lo peor. A la niña mayor me la golpearon un poco y me dijeron de que no, que a ellos no les importaba si moría uno de mis hijos, ni nada por el estilo.
Close to dawn on January 1st, I basically turned myself in and was asking about Kevin and the baby, and the Border Patrol at that point roughed up my older daughter, my 9-year-old, insulted me, basically told me that they didn't care if one of my children died. That's how I crossed.
Yo después de ese momento, pues a mí me dejan, me acuerdo, me dejan salir. Llamaron a mi tío, le dijeron que que la patrulla fronteriza me tenía detenida, si él me podía recibir, él dijo que sí, y pues pasó, el 2 de enero me dejan salir a mí, como era bien tarde, pues, la hora no la sé porque ahí no tienen, o sea, un reloj, uno no sabe, cuando te tienes detenido no sabes si es de día, si es de noche, no sabes. Y entonces me fueron a dejar a una iglesia católica que se llamaba, me acuerdo, Caridades Católicas. De ahí yo pedí una llamada, llamé a mi tío y ahí él me dijo que habían detenido a Kevin, que le habían quitado a Gretchen, que a él lo habían llevado preso y que la niña la habían mandado para Texas.
They contacted my uncle in San Francisco and they asked him if he was willing to receive me, and he said yes. And then on January 2nd, they released me, and I went to an organization called Catholic Charities, who then helped me connect with my uncle.
And I understand that eventually Mijente was able to get in touch with Kevin, and they spoke with him by phone, and we have part of a recording by phone with Kevin. Let's listen to that telephone call.
Entonces, Kevin, cuénteme un poquito cómo fue cuando usted estaba en la hielera y le quitaron a su hija.
Pues sí, como le digo, que ahí le tuvieron 3 días en la hielera y a mí pues no me daban comida para la niña, solo me daban 2 juguitos y pues la verdad la niña se los comía los huesos, yo lo probaba pues prioridad es mi hija, ¿me entiendes? Estuve 3 días ahí, cuando ya a mí me llamaron que ya supuestamente me iban a llevar, yo les dije que yo no les iba a dejar la niña. que por qué me la iban a quitar si ella solo tiene 18 meses, está muy pequeña. Y ellos me dijeron que no, que se la diera, que ellas se iban a poner ahí, que me iban a poner en una cama rara, no sé. Pues yo les dije que no se las iba a dar. Pues ellos llegaron y llamaron más refuerzos, como 5 de ellos. Y pues la verdad que la fuerza me la quitaron, me agarraron, me la quitaron y después me quedaron en el piso y me pusieron a mi esposa. Solo así me la pudieron quitar. Yo les dije que no siquiera que me dejaran darle un beso a mi niño, ni siquiera para decirle adiós. Me levantaron para mi esposa y le di un beso a mi niña. Pues mi niña se puso a llorar. Pues yo también, pues sabes que mi niña está muy pequeña. Y pues la verdad de ella me sorprendaba que pasó con ella.
Kevin obviously is in jail still, and I understand now that the charge of re-entry has been dropped because he hasn't done anything violent. What do you have to say to Donald Trump? Because it's his policies that caused all of this suffering to you and your children and your family.
Que no debería de estar haciendo esto con las familias.
That he shouldn't be doing this to families.
Que es algo injusto.
That it's unjust.
Él no sabe lo que se siente que le quiten a un hijo.
He doesn't know what it's like to have your child taken from you in this way.
Y que no solo yo estoy pasando por esto, están pasando miles de personas.
I'm not the only one that went through this. There are thousands of families going through
Es tan
this.
impotente al ver que a ellos no les duele cómo los niños sufren al ser separados de sus padres.
And I feel so powerless, knowing that they don't know what it's like for children to be separated and to suffer being separated from their parents.
What does the American dream mean to you, and is there an American dream anymore after everything that you've gone through?
Pues la verdad que yo creo que es bastante difícil, no es fácil porque no tengo una explicación para el del sueño americano. Yo creo que uno simplemente lo hace por el bienestar, bueno, en mi caso, por el bienestar de mi familia, de mis hijos. Por eso más que todo lo hice porque sabía que corría peligro en mi país. Entonces decidí venirme para aquí, pero imagínate toda la situación en la que estoy pasando. El papá de mi hija no está apoyándome, estoy yo sola en un país que no todavía no sé nada, que no tengo un permiso de trabajo, que no sé cómo hacer para enfrentar todo yo. Es bien difícil.
That's a tough question to answer because I can't really respond to the idea of an American dream. Really, what we came to this country was for well-being, for safety, to escape violence. So I don't really have an American dream per se, but what I do have is a daily struggle without Kevin in a country that I don't know, with my children, by myself. Those are the challenges that I'm facing right now, and it's very hard.
And it's totally understandable. I understand you also have a GoFundMe page if people want to go and help.
Pues yo creo que es algo sin precedentes, que no me va a terminar la vida, creo, para terminar de agradecerle también a mi gente por todas las cosas buenas que han hecho conmigo, cómo me han apoyado, cómo han estado conmigo, han ido a mis citas, me preguntan cómo me siento, he tenido, más que una organización es una familia.
It's incredible the amount of support. I can live my whole life and never be able to express the amount of gratitude that I feel for all the community support in that way, and also the support of Mijente. Mijente has been there to help me get to appointments. They ask me how I'm doing. I don't feel like it's just an organization. I feel like they are providing family for me.
Tell me how it felt to speak to her for the first time after being separated and not knowing even if she was alive.
Me la dejaban ver una vez por semana, por una videollamada. Y casi todas las llamadas que hacíamos ella estaba mal y se ponía a llorar. Apenas le hablaba yo, ella se ponía a llorar.
I felt badly because I was only permitted to do a video call with her once a week. And each of those calls, as soon as she'd hear my voice, she would begin to cry.
We have a video of you being reunited with Juliet at the airport. Let's watch. It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. But, you know, I'm happy you're back with Juliet. I wish you the best. I hope you're reunited with Kevin any day now. Lisa, thank you very much for your excellent translations. Thank you all for coming on. I really appreciate it.